So that was, I was really felt very motivated to see most of you guys already discussing amongst yourselves as far as the handout for tonight on chapter 1 and looking and focusing on the different types of units of measurement for the nursing and allied health sciences. So tonight we'll formally try to go through the PowerPoints and just highlight the key topics that will be of use to you. So the first one is of course chemistry and chemicals. What do you think this nurse is doing? What is she doing here?
Measuring out and measuring the doses of.
Okay, so probably she's calculating some dosing calculations that the doctor prescribed for a particular patient, right? Okay, and then, so chemistry is the study of the composition of the structure, properties, and chemical reactions that matter, anything that has mass and occupies space does. So it can be a physical property or a chemical property and a reaction. So it's really cool. Chemistry is a central science that explains living and non-living things. How they behave, how you can actually these days now, how you can actually prevent diseases or cure diseases, starting with using the genome or some new drugs or targeted therapy or proton, or different types of radiation therapies also, right? Chemotherapy. So chemistry, so you see antacids. What do you think it causes the bubbles?
Chemical reaction.
What, is there a gas, you think, being evolved there, right? A gas is being evolved, so there's a solid, there's a liquid, and then there's a gas also. Now that's, chemistry happens every day all around you. Chemistry is everywhere. So the acid tablets are matter, water is matter, the glass itself holding them. And the air in which we breathe is also matter. So air is made out of gaseous, a mixture of gases. What do you think is the #1 gas?
Oxygen.
If we had oxygen, we'd have purifier, airifier, we'd have spontaneous combustion. Nitrogen, very good. Yeah. So nitrogen, 78%. Air, I don't know if it will show up, if I write on the board, will it still show up on the, can you still see it?
Yes.
Because occasionally I'll start writing on here, right? And so when we say air, right? So air is a mixture of gases that has nitrogen, and that 78% of it is nitrogen. So percent, right, per 100. And it also has oxygen, around 21%. And then it has all the other gases like argon, carbon dioxide. What other gases do you think are in the air, mixtures? Okay, that can be found in so here is
hydrogen.
Hydrogen. You think hydrogen is in the air? We'll check that, right? Because remember, this is already pretty high, right? So what we can do, whoever is really good Googling, right? What is air made out of? Or the composition in air. I can do that really quickly too so we can see. So then we have all sorts of different types of chemistry, but we will be studying general chemistry. So the first the first 8 chapters of your text, right? So this is our text, the 11th edition. So the first 8 chapters are general chemistry, and then from chapters 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is organic chemistry. Chapter 9 is actually nuclear chemistry. And then we have 14, 15, 16 will be biochemistry. So there's biochemistry, but we're actually doing a little physical chemistry and a little bit of applied geochemistry also. Because when we say geochemistry, when we say what happens to the air in which we breathe if we live near a coal mine, right? What happens to the air? There's a new Harvard study that showed actually that pregnant women that live in Utah, because there's a big Kennecott copper mines, they end up with, they have more autistic kids, 50% more. So that means air pollution. So very, very important. So we may be worried about the water we drink and all that, but we haven't really thought much about the air in which we breathe. Yeah, right? So that's something I have lots of, because I'm very interested in that. I'll try to share with you some new data that are actually being found, that are currently being found. So this study was just a couple of years ago. So of course chemicals are everywhere, and I take a lot of vitamins, right? And I know for the bones to be really strong, what do you take when you drink milk, right? Milk. And what type of milk do you think you should drink?
Organic.
Huh? Organic. What do the athletes, what type of milk do the athletes drink other than organic, non-fat? Right? They tend to drink the non-fat. I'm just saying the athletes, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think they tend to drink the non-fat? Because they know that if they don't drink organic milk and they buy pasteurized milk, those cows have been injected with certain growth hormones. And so guess where the hormones are fat solubles? They get mixed up with a fatty portion of the milk. Right? I know. Yeah. So we compromise by drinking like a 2%, right?
Yeah. So whole milk is not good?
The milk is good because it helps your circadian rhythm. It has tryptophan. And good sleep is also very important, just as important as a good diet, and I'll explain why, and prove to you why. So chemistry is actually the backbone of even accounting. We have an accountant here. At Central, I have an advertising major and a lawyer. And so we refer to them, when I say, when we have. So when you look at, I'm just going to pass this around, right? And I tend to have kind of yellowish teeth, and I like to drink coffee in the morning, so to keep it white. So this seems to work. So pass this around too. But take a look at one ingredient there that you've never heard before and write it down. So hopefully you'll each have an ingredient, right? So in your group, choose one ingredient that you will discuss.
Just one.
So toothpaste is a combination of chemicals. Can you read? Can I have someone write down the components of the toothpaste?
Okay.
Is anyone here planning to be a dentist? Is anyone planning to be a dentist? Oh, cool, awesome. Come on over here. Write down the toothpaste. Yeah. I know, isn't that something? See if you can write down the actual, write down the components of the toothpaste, and we'll just write it down on the board, on this side of the board here, right? And then I'll tell you which one is the active component that was really very good for us. Does anyone know what our teeth is made out of? Okay, I don't know, but what's the chemical? It's calcium hydroxyapatite, right? That's why we need calcium for our bones. Because if we don't have enough calcium, by the time we're 50, we end up with we get osteopenia and osteoporosis. But the bones get very porous, right? Yeah. But then it depends on the type of calcium you take too, because you don't want to take calcium carbonate like limestone, because guess what? You get constipated, right? So you want to get the right type of calcium combination. So I tend to get the time-release citrical because it's calcium citrate. That's why the knowledge of chemistry is so important. And also, you can even buy cheaper things just because knowing the active chemical involved, right? So we see here, we have calcium, of course, so because we need calcium, right? Propylene glycol, so that's kind of like probably a binder, filler to get it compounded very nicely. But then we have pyrophosphate, there's no fluoride here? Does it say, look for the active ingredient? So as you go around, right, so very, 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 very important to know. And for those that, I know in general chemistry, I have a lot of students that want to go into pharmacy, and so they're really very much interested in the dosing and the calculations and so forth. So I'm going to move along. Did you find the active ingredient? Yes. So the chemicals in toothpaste, take a look, right? Calcium carbonate, sorbitol. So sorbitol, like sweet, something sweet, sugar. Did it show the active ingredient? Yes. Oh, sorry. Can you write down that active ingredient so we can read? So that's the active ingredient that I see. Is all three. Yeah, all three. So sodium, monofluorophosphate, fluoride. And what's fluoride too? We know that we put fluoride in the water, right? To prevent what? Decay. Cavities, right? But then too much fluoride is no good too, right? And so when you say the active ingredient is sodium monofluorophosphate fluoride, before exam 1, you'll know how to write the chemical formula. Right now it's just the words, right? So isn't that very, very interesting? So after just a few minutes tonight, you already realize that chemistry can really make you so upbeat about the profession you've chosen. That's really cool, yeah. And so, but then there are some things, some additives too that you actually don't like, right? So when you buy things, for example, like deodorants, right? It's a known fact these days that you don't want deodorants that have aluminum in it. Why? Because they end up in our brain and you get beta tangles. So then that leads to Alzheimer's. There are some now that don't have. And I know, but they're no good. Yeah, so I know. So then, you know, you can do it in moderation, right? Yeah. Okay. We'll be looking at all these different types of chemicals and categorizing them. Okay. So when we cook also, so there are certain codes when you buy certain foods too, right? So you always like to buy, of course, organic. And it's going to be hard to see this. Do you see the apples there?
Yes.
Yeah, let me erase what happened to the eraser? to make do with an eraser, right? So if you don't find, you have to find something that will work. And see the red apples, right? Fruits grown with fertilizers and pesticides. So probably not a good thing. Also, so you have to, in moderation, you may want to peel it, you want to.
But some organic stuff has pesticides in it also.
Exactly.
You don't know what to get. It's like,
If you don't know it yourself, it's not right.
yeah, so strong.
Yeah. Sometimes the labeling is not also good, right? So therefore, which of the following contains chemicals? The concept check, right?
Fruit, milk,
Milk and fruit, right? So sometimes you can be asked that there could be more, right? All of the above or none of the above. So make sure don't just choose one if there are other. But sunlight is not a chemical. Okay, it's energy, that's chapter 2. Very good. Okay, so there you go. Sunlight is energy given off by the sun. Fruit contains chemicals and sodium milk. Okay, so that's more or less, it just tells you that everything has chemicals. So I will write this down so that it will be clearer. Now we're going to try to go to the units of measurement. When you look at the picture, right? So in chemistry, remember, we got to use all our senses. We got to observe. So when you look at these two students walking down the street, right? It says it's 8:30 in the a.m. You can tell from their shadows. The guy or the girl? Yeah, but then how tall is he, right? 165 centimeters or 65 inches. Who's the math guru over here? Are you the math or? Oh, there's a math. A math guru. Can you show what's the best way to set up a conversion factor to convert 165 centimeters into? Yeah. So yes, could you put it here? Say for example, can you just put an example here for those that? What's your first name?
Joyce.
Joyce, yes. So we have a math expert here, which is very good. And I think we have a couple of other resident experts over here. So, you know, this is very important. When I used to teach at Miami-Dade, they told us that all the students that are in nursing should really memorize 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. Yes, but so how can we show that 165 centimeters, right? So we'll multiply because we want to convert it into an inch, right? So if we are given 165 centimeters, we want to write 165 first, right? And then we want to find out how much is that. So we want to cancel centimeters. So the centimeter cancels, right? But then we got to write down 2.54 centimeters is equal to 1 inch. And so that's how we get 65 inches. Now, some of you we were discussing and trying to summarize significant figures to review your math. So if we are given here, if we are given 165 centimeters, how many significant figures is that?
3.
1, 2, 3, right? So 1, 2, 3. So take out your calculators, and it will give you the correct answer, because our answer has got to be also in 3 significant figures. All right? Not one. Not based on this, but your significant figure calculation will be based on what is given. And your data is only as good as your measurement. Right? So if you have a digital scale, it will be more accurate than one that, that the doctors have in your office with. But most of the time, to measure your height, right? There are even digital height measurements. I don't know, have you seen that? They have it in the construction industry. So what's the answer from your calculators? For those that have your calculators, use your phone. 64. What did you get?
64.96.
How much?
64.96.
Okay. 64.96.
Because this is 3 figures, so the answer has to go like this.
And then what other numbers?
0.
960? Or what is your calculator? Who has a calculator? Oh, there, you see. What does your calculator say? So many zeros, right? Okay, so it made it a point because you made 254. So you need to put 2.54. Yeah. So 64.9686. So I'll just go ahead and write a whole bunch of numbers, right? 9686, blah, 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 right? But then we need to only round this off to 3 significant figures. So 64.9.
That's it?
Or what do you think? What should it be?
Since 6 is
It will be 65.
From the accounting point of view? Well, what do you think they just put? So they're not very accurate, right?
No, they're rounded.
I know, they just rounded it off to 65. So in the exam, you could be asked to round it off to,
If you divide 165 by 2.54, you get 64. That's what everybody's not getting.
64.9.
165 divided by 2.54.
yeah, 2.54, yeah. So 64.9. So then,
We're just missing a point.
should we write it down as 64.9?
Yes.
What did you learn in your math as far as rounding? Because it's more than 5, so what should it be? Round it up some more, so that
65.
pretty cool, huh?
If they ask you to round it up,
And now we can look at
say
the weight.
if it's more than 5, you have to round it up.
The weight of the backpack is 12 kilograms.
Then you just.
How can we convert kilograms to pounds? Okay. I'm using this group, right? And then accent. Okay, good. See, most of you know this, so there's no point in going over and over it again, right? So 12 kilograms. So you probably will want to write down your one pound is equal to 1 kilograms. And then, so now we want to convert this and set it up so we cancel our units. So you want to do the math? How would we do this? So 12 kilograms times 2.2, we want to cancel kilograms, right? So we should put our, you know how to write, here's I found the eraser.
Are you going from kilograms to pounds?
Yeah. Because we're doing 12 kilograms. Let's do it, thank you. So we want to write down if 1 pound is equal to 2.2 kilograms, and we are given 12 kilograms.
I think it's over
It's over there. It's 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds.
It's over there.
It's reversed because it
Oh,
got
it's
kilos.
reversed.
Words.
Did I?
1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds.
Because kilo, right? Kilo is heavier. Kilo is 1,000 grams, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Because you're getting from pounds.
so 1 kilogram is equal to 2.2 pounds, and we are given we are given 12 kilograms. We want to cancel kilograms, right? So put the kilograms in the denominator, right? And then put the 2.2 pounds in. You got it right? And so what do we get?
26.4.
Okay. So pounds, right? So here's our desired unit. So before you do the math, make sure that it's canceled. And so what do we get here? Is 26.4 the correct answer?
Yeah.
And so you see, sometimes in our book, right, lots of the math sometimes not quite right? So don't follow, believe in your right answer. So, because what should be our significant figure? What should be our answer? Two significant figures. So this one is 3, 26, right?
Usually you have to multiply.
So in the exam, you could be given this as a disruptor answer, but it's really the correct answer because the given is only two significant figures. Okay? If the given was 12.0 kilograms, how many significant figures is that now? 3. Right? Because there's a decimal. So then, our answer would then be 26.4. Okay? Yeah.
So if you, depends on what you ask for?
Yes, yes.
So what about the top one?
Which one? This one?
The first one, yeah.
The first one? Okay. So the first one, for example, if the top one is, I'm going to make it because this one, how many significant figures?
3.
3. Because there's no decimal.
No.
Okay.
No decimal. So 3. So the answer will still be, now the answer will be, we'll have to divide 116,500 divided by 2.54. And what do we get? You want to come and write down the answer? 686. Good, you're thinking. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what's the number? What do you get in your calculator?
Okay. 64960.06.
Okay, 64960.06. 6496.06. Okay. So now we have 3 significant figures. So what would the answer be?
65.4.
3 significant figures? Very good. 650.
That's 650.
3 significant figures?
Yeah.
But 650 is only 2, right?
Yeah.
So what should it be? 649. Very good. Awesome.
But
Yeah.
what about that 6? Yeah, what about 6?
So this is where, yeah, any comments? Any comments from the math people?
Yeah, is it 16,500 centimeters?
Yeah, 16,500. But only 3 significant figures. So our answer's got to be in 3 significant figures, right?
All the figures are significant because they're all before the period. The period's behind the 0.
Yeah, these are significant, but they're 4. We can only report in 3. So what would it be?
No, the 16,500, they're all significant because they're the 0.
There's no period. There's no period.
There's no period.
No, it's an imaginary period.
there's no period, right? I'm just saying that this is what the calculator gives, right? But we have to report our data in three significant figures. Right? So 6, 4, 9, 0. 6, 4, 9, 0. Right? Got it? Yeah. So this would be the disruptor. I know. Now I'm gonna make another scenario, okay? I'm gonna make this 165.00.
So now it's 5.
Now it's 5 significant figures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because there's a decimal. Got it? Yeah. So now it's gonna be
6, 4, 9.
yeah. The answer would be 6, 4, 9, 6, 8, 6, or whatever the numbers, right? What is it? What is the actual one?
6196.0.
649, 64968.06. So then we erase that.
Before 8,
There's no 8?
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Okay? So that if there's a decimal.
What you really try to say is that what's behind the periods is what you expect as an answer, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at measured sig figs, right? Let's look at the rules. Let's look at the rules in our textbook. So there's actually a table that summarizes these rules. Did you find
Really? And then those are in the PowerPoint. What she's doing.
Look, may I see someone's textbook? There's a rule, right? Okay, here it is. Turn to page. Did anyone find on the textbook the rules for rounding significant figures?
14.
1, 4?
No, 14.
4, 0? Okay, thank you. 1, 4? So, what's the first rule? All numbers are significant, right? What's the second rule?
0 is not significant.
Okay.
A 0 between non-zero digits.
So as a group now, we have a problem in the handout, right? That had the significant figures. What number was that? 15. Okay. So take a look at number 15. And do you all agree that that answer is, what letter is the answer?
Yes.
Do you all agree and do you all understand that the answer is letter C?
Yes.
Let's,
Yes. Where? Why would it be?
can I have someone, one of you ladies, write it here?
Why wouldn't that be B?
Which
They have
has
three
significant
So, how about
Zero in front of it.
The answer? Just the answer?
number 15?
No.
Okay.
Just the answer?
Yeah. How do you set it up? But someone's asking, right? Someone's asking, what why should the answer to that be C, number 15, and not B?
Because the zero doesn't count at the end of B.
So let's take a look at that.
Because yeah, B is only two.
No, write down,
Doesn't count.
write down all the choices.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
B. Because there's one that's 0, 5, 1. What about A?
Okay, so let's look at letter A. So class, let's look at letter A, right? Okay. Letter A says 0.005. How many significant figures is that?
3.
3, because there's a 0 that dot.
Yeah.
But that first 0 doesn't count. But the dot then 005 is 3 significant figures. Very good, right? What about the next one?
No, because the zero doesn't
Yeah,
count.
how many significant?
2.
2, very good. So is everyone getting it?
Number 1. Zero is never count.
the table, and this is 4, 3, 0.
Yeah, you want to write it down? Write it down. Then we'll talk about it. Write it down what the book said. So this one, oh, thank you. What's your first name again? Sajid. Yes. Okay, so this one should have 3, right? This one should have 2, right?
How does it
This one should have 3. And this one should have
3.
yeah. And this one should have 2. Do we all agree? Yes, looks like.
There's more than one answer.
Yeah, it's more than one answer, yeah.
I got it.
There's more than one answer.
Yeah.
Now you know, right? Because sometimes the way it's set up, right? That you could have A, B, and that's what you're gonna bubble.
So it's anything that is zero is not significant. It doesn't
No, at the beginning of the decimal.
If a 0 is not significant, it's at the beginning.
1, 1, 1 would be 3.
Yeah, that means this one. Just that one.
No.
It's 8.
No, all of them, it's at the beginning, so they don't count. So the only one significant.
Yeah, but when we measure them, the rule is they don't count.
No, it says the zero is not significant if it is at the beginning of a decimal number. So if the zero is starting, they don't count, only the number. So it'll be only 1.
So A is 1.
So A is 1.
Yeah,
It's not.
A is 1,
So then D is 2.
then D is only 2. Yeah, D is 2. C is 3.
It's correct.
Yeah,
D is 2.
D is 2.
So it's 0.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Now it makes sense.
That's why it's good to check the tables, right?
Okay.
So if it's, yeah.
We're still good with the examples then.
Yeah.
Any other significant figure questions? So we're all clear with the significant figure questions, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
No, it's C. Just C.
So the answer was letter
C.
Because normally if there are more than one correct answer, they will say all of the above or letter A.
It's the same thing.
Okay. So now we go to another unit of measurement called volume. In the lab, some of you that had me yesterday in the lab we were measuring the displacement of a milk penny, right? How many milliliters did it displace? We were weighing it also. So we say this is the units of volume for, we could have a liter, which is 1,000 milliliters, or it can be in quarts, right? 1 quart is equal to 946. So volume, and for those that had me in lab, I'm going to repeat about the sugar cube, right? It's one of our last problem solving is about a sugar cube. So if you have a sugar cube, what's the length, width, and height of a sugar cube, do you think? Or do you know what a sugar cube is? How many know what a sugar cube is? You can buy powdered sugar or sugar cube, right? So a sugar cube normally measures 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. And to find the volume, how do we find the volume? Times width times height. So that would be 1 centimeter times 1 centimeter, and then another 1 centimeter. And so we get 1 centimeter cube, or actually 1 cubic centimeter, or 1 cc, or 1 ml. Okay, so remember that. Very important, right? So there's the cc, and there's the cubic centimeter relationship. And also, when we want to read, when we want to read a graduated cylinder, and if it's water, most of the time it tends to have, it clings to the surface of the glass, called capillary reaction. So we want to read the bottom. We want to read the bottom of the meniscus. So we use graduated cylinders, that's another name, to measure the volume. So what happens if I put this, right? So I'll weigh this, and this says this weighs 5 pounds, 5 grams. Then I'll measure out, say, this says 946 milliliters this much, right? Equal to 1 quart. What do you think happens if I put this paper clip in there? Will the water go down or will it go up? Go up, right. It will go up by some amount, some ml, right? So how can you find out the volume of this? Say it went up to, say, around 999.5 ml. Let's pretend it's something really heavy, like a brick or something, right? So how will you find the volume of these? You will subtract, so it's called determining the volume by water displacement. So you will subtract 999.5 minus 946, and that will be the volume of of this one, right?
Would it be the volume or the weight?
Yeah. So then we're going to go into the relationship between mass over volume, which is density. Is there a density problem in the handout?
No.
Let's go to this relationship. So density is a derived property because we use the mass and we use the volume. And how many have heard of the miracle density triangle when you try to calculate. Okay, would you like to share?
I'm so kind of trapped right now.
Awesome. You're good. And then everyone too, right? You know, you want to move around because you don't want to get sleepy. Because, you know, the hour is... put it over here, the triangle. So that you won't make any mistakes in finding volume or finding mass. You won't divide when you're supposed to multiply. Okay, so now, show us then how to solve for it, right? So, okay, what's your first name? Would you mind writing your name? So I'm just going to make something up. Okay, here it is. Osmium is a very dense metal. Yeah, don't write it there. Right where it's not. Because these are our choices, right? Okay. You see the choices, right? Yeah. 2.25, 20.5, 111 grams per cubic centimeter. So, osmium is a dense metal, and it weighs 50 grams, and has a volume of 2.2 cubic. So we'll find the density. Okay, so show them first how you apply the magic triangle. Don't solve it first.
Okay.
So that they know what formula to use, right?
Yes. Mass over volume and density. So mass equals volume times density. Volume is equal to mass over density, and density equals mass over volume. We're to write it down.
Okay, Jennifer, thanks. I'll take over. I'll take over.
Okay, here.
Bravo. No, but stay here first, right? Because you're going to solve it.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to do something. I'm going to put density on this side here. Right? Because the definition of density is equal to mass over volume, right? Mass is in grams, and volume is in ml, right? So it's grams per ml. Okay? So then it would volume. So when you're looking for density, mass over volume. Isn't that cool? Yes, a bigger math.
Equals 50 grams.
Oh yes, now use this because you can't see that. And then, so continuing on with the triangle, right? If you want to solve for mass, discover it, and multiply density times volume. Isn't that so cool? Mm-hmm. And then if you want to solve for volume, just cover volume, mass divided by density. See that? So that's why this is kind of like a magic triangle, right? Yeah. Because with this formula sometimes it's very easy, right? Density times volume. But when you solve for volume, the students will still multiply. And
instead of the volume.
yeah, see that? When you solve for volume, it should really be mass over density. The students will still mass up density again. Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Does she have the correct significant figures? Of course. Wow, this is a really smart group. Yeah, you see how I have to change the dynamics of the class so that I'm not lecturing to half asleep students, right? Texting students. Yeah. So there are other density type problems too. So this is actually a lab that different campuses, perform. But if you look at the density of different common substances, and always remember that the density of water And that's why water is such a unique substance. Let's take a look at the different types of compounds. Density is a very, very important property. And a little bit later, we'll have to look at the relationship. And some of you that have your textbooks, what is the difference between density and specific gravity? So look at the glossary, and we'll compare them. And how is that applied to, our health or the next profession? What does your urine have to do with specific gravity? What does an aquarium, the knowledge of specific gravity is important in keeping a healthy aquarium? Okay, but let's first take a look at water. Do we have water here?
Yeah. The second one. Fourth down, the second column.
Middle of the middle.
After olive oil.
In the middle of the middle column.
I see it. Yes, right? Water has a density of 1. But you look at a cork. A cork has a density of 0.26. So all of those that have densities below 1 will what? Float or sink? Float. Yeah. Cool, huh? So of course ice, ice floats. Because it's 0.92. Wood. Look at bone, right? 1.8. It's calcium heavy, right? Salt, table salt. Sodium chloride. How many have heard of the word sodium chloride? Good. Oh. So most of you actually know some chemical names, chemical formulas. And of course, aluminum. So copper, what do you think is a symbol of copper? Copper has a symbol of Cu. Silver has a symbol of Ag. Lead has a symbol of Pb. And gold has a symbol of Au. So you probably want to learn a little bit about symbols a bit. So these guys can be found here, so they are elements. We don't see milk in here, right? No sugar. But we see sodium, right? And we see chlorine. And we'll understand why sodium and chlorine like to combine and form sodium chlorine. So you notice that the gases, with the exception of nitrogen, air, oxygen, carbon dioxide, right? Their densities. But look at their densities now. So let's not be, the gases are density in grams per liter. We'll be studying gases intensively in chapter 5 or 6, I think. What chapter is that? I think 5, right? Gases are in chapter 5. Okay, so let's move on to more. Any questions so far? No, clear? Claro? Very good. Okay, so that's what we solved. Okay, so this is actually what you do in the balance. How many have done the balance, used the balance before? Okay, and some, if you haven't seen a balance yet or you haven't taken the lab, right? Most of the balances we have now are not those, scales like so, but they're more digital. And so they tend to have their accuracy. This brings us to the accuracy of the balance, right? This balance says the mass of the zinc is 68.60. But you notice our balance yesterday was reading to the 0.005, right? So how many know the difference between accuracy and precision? Accuracy, okay? Because and precision. What was the example I used yesterday? Does someone recall? You recall. She recall. Do you recall? You recall, right?
I don't know.
No, in our 6 o'clock lab. We didn't do it.
I was at 6.
Oh, I see, okay. Yeah, I forgot I had 2 classes. Yeah. Did we do it?
No, we didn't do that.
Oh, we didn't do that. Ah, okay. Oh, good. Okay, so if you had, how many like to play darts? All right. Good, I saw 2, right? I saw 2 hands that went up. So, when you play darts, where do the darts go? Ooh, okay, show 4. Show 4 darts. That means she has good eye-hand coordination.
Okay, where you want to get it?
Bullseye.
Well, she said,
Where you want it?
yeah, put 4 dots.
Okay. Sometimes you get it here.
Okay, very good. Okay. Sometimes I get it out here, so draw one.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
No, you're fine. Now keep yours, right? So, say for example, I really don't know how to play darts, right? So, my darts go here, here, and here. But what's your name again?
Michelle.
But Michelle is more accurate because she has 2 dots and the bullseye, right? And also, her 4 dots are in the. With me, I have 1 right in the outer cone and everything is out. But I am precise because they're all close together. That's what precision means. Okay, good job. Okay, so this balance is only good to the hundreds. But our balance in the lab is good to the, so this balance seems to be only good to the hundreds, right? But the balance that we used yesterday went all the way, right? Because when we were, we didn't weigh, it was the other class, yeah. So we were weighing pennies that, I think it was weighing like 2.786, 2.459. So in other words, actually, do you guys have pennies and see if you have any pennies that are older than 1974? Because they actually will weigh more than a 2014 penny. Because copper is very expensive, so they no longer use it. Yeah.
I got 60 now.
Older pennies are more copper. Yeah, I noticed in our lab, out of the 7 samples that we did, 4 of them were 2014. And they had weighed like 2.4, not the 2.7, yeah. Okay, so remember, right, density, very, very important. Very, very important physical property and a very important topic as well as our chapter tonight. Yeah. So, who can write the definition of specific gravity from your textbook? I'm just grabbing the persons that people that have their textbook right up in the front. Let's see if I can find the density problem. The specific gravity. Let's write it here. Let's write it down. So, for those that have their textbook, look at the glossary, right? You know what the glossary is, where the definitions are, and see what the definition of specific gravity is, and discuss amongst yourselves what you think it is. is the density of the sample over the density of water. So in other words, so what was the density of osmium that you found, Jennifer? 22 point something, right?
Yes.
So what would be the specific gravity? Because density would be 22 point something grams per milliliter. It would be the same thing, but no units, because the units are canceled, right? So density of sample in grams per ml over the density of water, which is 1 gram per ml, right? So it cancels out. So the density of the sample, so if the density of the sample was 22, I'm just making it up right now, right? 15 grams per ml. What would be the specific gravity? It would just be 22.1. No units. So in the exam, then your choices would be from 22.15 grams per ml. That's a disruptor, right? You should know that specific gravity. The definition is density of the sample over that of water. So the application of specific gravity is when you do a urinalysis. Specific gravity is directly proportional to the osmolality, and we will learn this when you will note in our syllabus when we talk about solutions in chapter. We will talk about the relationship when you do the urinalysis of a particular patient or so. So there are dipstick chemical analysis, pH also. How many of you have heard of the word pH already? That's very, very important. Some of those that have worked and are working in customs. So where have you heard word? Anatomy? Anatomy, so say a sentence that has pH in it. Okay.
A sentence?
In a sentence, put it in a sentence.
Well, anything below, like a pH below 6.2 is alkaline.
Oh, very good, good, awesome. So, yeah, because that's a very important, the pH is one of the very important topics that you'll need to know as far as nursing, and will be in your exams and stuff like that. So the pH is quite important, as well as the specific gravity is also very important. And so how many have heard of the GFR of blood plasma? So what should be the pH of blood?
7.35 or 7.45.
So most of you know that, right? So the pH of blood, so if it's below, it's acidic, and if it's above, it's alkaline. So you've heard of acidosis, alkalosis. Good. So I'm just figuring out what type of prior knowledge the group has. So, and you've never heard of it, right? So, but it's good. You're a quick learner, so you get it. Okay, so take note of this. Urine, why does urine have a specific gravity more than 1, do you think?
Solids.
What are solids? What are the solids in there, you think? There could be some solids, right?
They could have sodium.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, exactly. That's correct. Yeah, because you can actually see it, right? Especially those that are also sick, it's even more dense, right? Yeah. Okay, so any questions on specific gravity and density? So now let's look at trigger questions. And then we'll take a quick break, right? Stretch before we start our chapter 2. I want to go through clicker questions. It's another way of looking at test-like questions. And then so you can today, if you're here and you're in a group, right? So you have your leaders already. Make sure you put the leaders card on top, and then put the members of the group. So in the back, only for the leaders in the back, put your name first, and then the members of your group. And so remember the 4 things.
It's B, yeah, because there's 4 zeros.
No, that's actually 3 zeros.
No, but you're telling me the one before.
Why is it B?
1, 2, 3, 4. You count the 5 as well?
It's negative because you go to
Scientific notation is very easy, right? So 1, 2,
3, 4. Minus, so I just count, I have to be counting the zeros. That's all.
so therefore times 10 to the minus 4. But if it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what would it be?
1, 2, 3, 4.
So it's 5
times 10 to the 4th.
Very good. Okay? See how easy scientific notation? So I didn't kind of want to waste too much time with it. But you gotta think, okay? So if this is 0, and I'm gonna make a ladder, right? So what is 10?
Is before.
Okay, what's 100? If I'm gonna put 100 here,
10?
what would it be in scientific notation?
No, 10 to the second power. Yeah,
10 to the 2, right?
yeah.
Right? What about 1/100?
10 minus.
There you go. So you gotta think of it like that, right?
Yeah.
So 1/10 is 10 to the minus 1. Yeah. But what's 10 to the 9? 1 to 10 to the minus 9?
9/9.
Nano. 10 to the minus 6? Micro. 10 to the minus 3? Million. So these are the ones that you want to know. You kind of use that a lot. Okay, so there's a check now, right? Number of significant figures.
3.
Okay, 3? Good. That's leading, right? So only 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Which one is it? This one? This 3?
It's 2 5 0
times 0.
Right? Is that the correct one?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, here's a nice one. This is actually, I see this one in the exam a lot. So this is kind of like a graduation chapter 1 test question, okay? So a patient needs 0.04 grams of Asofa drug. And Central last semester we made that sulfanilamide in organic in our organic lab. We have 1024, right? There are 8, what we have is an 8 milligram tablets are supplied. 8. Three or 4 did not solve this because I know for sure there's one that knows how to solve it. How many tablets should there be?
3.
Yeah. How did you do that? Why?
Because
I convert first.
Who doesn't know how to do it? Who would like to share and show the correct way of doing canceling the units, right? Doing the analysis.
over 8.
8 times 3. Okay, so.
Would you like to convert it?
Oh, yes.
Let's do conversion first. Let's do conversion first. There's 1,000 milligrams. So, multiply 0.2. No, multiply 0.2.
That's why now I just got a plumber, he makes it.
You would know. Yeah, you would know.
I'll try to learn your name, right? So, okay, write down first what's given. Write down what's given first.
8.0
Okay?
into ground,
Okay.
Yeah.
which is going to be,
So going to continue. How do we get?
well, you have the unit, then you have decigram, centigram, and milligram. And you have 8 milligrams, and you're going to convert it to grams, so it's 0.00.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how do we get the 3 tablets?
It's this. Well, it's 0.024.
There you go, divided by.
Divided by this.
So did everyone, awesome. Very good. So did everyone get that?
Yeah.
So make sure you remember this one, right? Write it down and highlight it. Okay, so here's another one. Acute measures 2 centimeters on each side. What is the volume?
8 centimeters.
That's correct. A is correct. B is correct. B for dogs, right? All of them. Right? Okay? So when you're taking the test, don't stop when you see the correct answer. I'm that way too. I get so excited, right? I stop and continue on. But then when I review it, especially the first page, right? I know so. I feel like I know so much. I go so fast, and then I fall into that all of the a little bit of that. Okay, so some conversion factors you probably will see or may not see, but what would be the good conversion factor for grams and kilograms? You know that kilo is 1,000, right? So what would be the best one? B. Very good. Okay, here's another one also. And let's make this a group work, right? So we'll take a break for like 10 minutes. You come back and then try to, as a group work, right? Try to come up with the solution, how to solve that. When we first come in next Tuesday, oh, I forgot to tell you. Next Tuesday, I'm presenting a paper. I'm representing Broward to Arizona. So I'll have substitute.
Oh, no.
I know, just for one night. And then after that, I'm all yours.
Okay.
Okay? I'm flying, we're flying at 4 o'clock, so that means I have to find a substitute. So I
What is going to be your favorite about? What is your favorite about?
3D printing.
3D printing?
Oh, like
Like
the
3D printing, all right, 3D printing a kidney.
That's what she did.
Put on
Did you watch on her?
There's a
tour?
movie called Neighbors, and well, it's kind of inappropriate what they had in 3D.
Yeah, it can be, but no, this is so high tech, right? 21st century technology. Especially for dentists. You know, one of my organic chemists, in our organic chemistry lab, they did a 3D printing of a dental frame. Then another one, with a material called polylactic acid, it's biodegradable. And so then it just incorporates itself into the body and gets assimilated. Yeah. So another student, her aunt turned out to be an orthopedic surgeon, and so her aunt was printing, and so the U.S. government Department of Defense is doing this for the soldiers.
Cool.
So I'm reporting about her work also. Exciting, right?
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
I'll share with you when I come back. I'll show you. We'll bring you. So with the class I had last semester, we printed like a book, we printed a cup. Yes, we did. So we can set it up, but what happened to it? So this particular problem, so we'll do so not next week, right? Because remember, we will make this one of our review topics when we review on the 27th, right? For our exam on the 3rd. Because I might make something like this be one of the bonus questions. Because I'll make 5 bonus questions. And if you guys want to choose these as a bonus question, we'll do it. I'm very inefficient with this computer. I have to figure out how I can get my downloads to work. Is someone a techie here that can help me? Oh, there, I got it. Okay. So chapter 2 will classify matter, we'll talk about that. The states of matter, we'll talk about it. And energy, but then we won't talk about the specifically too much. We'll talk about the energy and radiation. So we want to classify matter accordingly. We could have, say, this solid brass that's made out of copper and zinc, and we call brass, right? Or we could have matter in the form of pure substances. I have a concept chart a little bit later. So you want to know what a pure substance, what's the difference between a pure substance and a mixture. I think I can raise this up. So when we open a can of Coke, what do you think? So a pure substance is classified as matter that has a fixed or a definite composition. And an element is one that is, these are elements, that's composed of only one type of atom. But do we know the definitions of what is an atom? What is an element? Take a look at your glossary, right? So what's the definition of an atom and what's the definition of an element? So then we have a compound. Okay, yes. So a compound is composed of two or more elements. So we have, say, what does the soda, most of it is really water, right? So what's the formula for water? H2O, right? So we have an O with two H's, and I'm drawing it like that. It's kind of like a Mickey Mouse, right? So H2O, because there's two hydrogen and one oxygen. So we call that a compound. Two or more elements. An element is hydrogen and oxygen. Right? So we can have a pure substance made out of an element or a compound. Or so here are some examples of elements, right? Copper, Cu, lead, Pb, aluminum, Al. A compound could be water, or it could be sugar. C12H22O11, that's our table sugar. That has glucose and fructose in it. It's a disaccharide. Okay? Then we have table salt, sodium chloride, and you're familiar with hydrogen peroxide. Okay, so those are compounds. So table salt, elements in a compound, table salt has sodium and chlorine. So we take metal, sodium metal, and we vaporize it and make it react with chlorine gas, and you get a solid product called sodium chloride or table salt. So the metal, right? What happens when we cut up a little bit of pea-sized metal and put it in water? It starts, jumping around and kind of sparks and making all sorts of popping sounds, and eventually dissolves into sodium hydroxide, a component of Drano. Yeah. So when we vaporize this and make it react with chlorine gas, then it forms a very stable table salt that we use as a preservative, right? We used to preserve stuff before we have all other BHTs or BHAs, preservatives today. So then we have mixtures. So a mixture that that can be physically separated, right? What I'm thinking of, say, if you go to the beach and scoop out some seawater, but then there's still sand in it, right? How will you separate the sand from the seawater? So pour it through a filter with, like a coffee filter. And then you separate so the sand stays in the filter paper while the seawater gets down here. If you want to make salt, put it outside the sun, it will evaporate, and you see salt crystals accumulating in the beaker. That's really nice, right? So we can have different types of mixtures. That mixture, because we could see the sand and the water, is called heterogeneous, but this one happens to be a homogeneous, right? Because you can tell that it has copper and zinc, right? So homogeneous mixture when it is uniform. The key word is uniform. Brass is a homogeneous mixture, but then seawater or salt water or sugar water, because you just see it looks like one clear homogeneous solution. But then when you have milk, milk has particles and solids, so it's heterogeneous, right? So anybody go scuba diving here? Okay. So these are different types of breathing mixtures when you scuba dive. When you have oxygen, nitrogen, it's called nitrox, or there's helium, or there's trimix, where all three gases. So we'll continue on and focus more on the gases next, on the chapter where we work on, the gas law. So heterogeneous mixture, when you take, say, oil and vinegar to make a vinaigrette, right? And they don't totally dissolve, they separate, so you can see, so heterogeneous. So take note of that, because you will have, so you can actually make a flow chart, right? So you have matter, it can be a pure substance, or it can be a mixture. If it's a mixture, a homogeneous mixture or a heterogeneous mixture. And if it's a pure substance, elements or compounds. So make sure you know the definition. So concept check. Which one would be, what's pasta and tomato sauce? Okay. Aluminum foil? Element, right? Because Al, because aluminum foil is pure aluminum actually. Yeah. And just, how many of you still cook with aluminum pans? Nobody, right? Good. No, because it's not good to cook with, especially when you cook like pasta with aluminum. Like pans or you're baking or stuff, especially with pasta and stuff. Don't, because then the acid from the sauce will dissolve the aluminum and then it end up in your food, right? And then you're eating it. I know. Yeah, so of course we have now all sorts of really cool cooking utensils, right?
If you're cooking it.
Stainless steel is okay. Yeah. Yeah, the ceramics are good too.
Ceramic.
Okay, so air is a mixture, right? So now helium is pure, it's an element. Aluminum is pure, it's an element. And potato, pasta, and tomato is a mixture. So what about, you're going to get hungry here, right? So I'm just going to go. You agree that unfudged sundae is heterogeneous, but you see the different shampoo can be homogeneous, right?
Yeah.
Sugar, water, heterogeneous, homogeneous, peach pie, heterogeneous. But you see the chunks of peach, okay? So then, there's different states of matter. Most of you probably know that the sun is made up of plasma, and plasma is a fourth state of matter. There actually are quite a few more states of matter. But we're gonna just focus on solid, liquid, and gas. So here's a solid. And amethyst is actually a form of quartz. Quartz is like sand, silicon dioxide. And it's purple. And now you're probably thinking, oh, what about the emeralds and the rubies and the sapphires, right? They're basically aluminum oxide, but then there's some impurities of beryllium or chromium, depending on whether it's an emerald, ruby, or sapphire. So it's really very interesting to look at the different types of solids. So liquids, so take note of solids, right? Definite shape, definite volume. Particles are fixed, move very slowly. In fact, they don't move, they just vibrate, right? They actually vibrate. But liquids have an indefinite shape, a definite volume. They are mobile, and then takes the shape of the container. Whereas gases, indefinite shape, indefinite volume, and the key word is far apart, move very fast. It also takes the shape of the container. And so in your table, you actually have this. I won't go ahead and, because I want to give you a quick, what happens, for example, so see if you can visualize this again, right? So I have 3 containers here, and I'm going to put, say, 8 blocks of ice, right? Solid. Can someone draw the liquid and the gas? So the gas, I gotta put a cover on too, right? What would be what happens to the block of ice when it melts? Can someone draw? Yeah. Come over. And write down your name, spell it so everyone knows your name.
I think it would probably come out on here.
Bravo. Awesome. Okay. And then what about the gas? Does someone do the gas? Okay. Yeah. So the gas will be, So what Anthony is showing is this particle, right, could be going down this way, and then could hit another particle, right? Or all these other particles, but only like 8 particles was moving very fast, very random. Okay? So the schematic they like to show with this is, once again, we're going to put maybe 4 dots, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, just pretending they're what? So they're going to be moving really fast all over and maybe even collide with each other too, right? So when you think of solids, liquids, and gas, you will want to okay, where's the view in here? Okay, so learning chat. which has a definite volume but takes the shape of the container. Particles are moving rapidly. Particles fill the entire volume of a container.
Liquid.
Fixed arrangement. Okay, good job. And particles close together but moving randomly. So therefore it is a liquid, right? Close together, moving randomly. So this textbook is actually nice, right? You learn the concept and then have some concept checks. So physical properties are very, very important. And what are the different types of physical properties? We can physical properties can be the boiling point and freezing point. See, there's our density, right? But color is also a physical property. So interesting, huh? Yeah. And actually, the way a Russian scientist set up the periodic table, he arranged them based on their physical properties and chemical properties. So see, I forgot this. So copper is one of the better cooking utensils, right? And it's the best one to use when you want to make your egg whites really stiff, right? Yeah, because it's okay. Identify the state of matter for each of the following: vitamin tablets. What's the state? Eye drops.
Liquid.
Vegetable oil.
Liquid.
Candle.
Solid.
Air in a tire.
Air. Yes.
Oh, gas. Okay, now physical changes. How do we describe physical changes? Some examples. When we tear, when I take this paper, I tear it, it's still paper. Right? But when I light it up and burn it and turns into ashes and into carbon, then it's chemical change. So tearing a piece of paper, hammering gold or silver and pouring are all just chemical changes. So another concept check. Change of state, right? What do you mean change of state? It changes from a solid to a liquid, right? So we're chopping a log, so we have a log and we're chopping it, so it is a change of state. Change of shape, not state, right? Water boiling? Change of state. Ice cream melting? Change of state. I know. They all start with S, right? So let's not confuse each other. Jumping a lot, shape, right? Boiling, state. Melting, shape. Freezing, ice forming in the freezer, state. Again. Cutting dough, shape. So chemical properties, when they actually turn into a new substance. So we call them, when we react hydrogen and oxygen, we form water, right? When we react sodium and chlorine, we form sodium chloride. So that's called a chemical change. Caramelizing is also referred to as a Because what happens to the sugar, right? We kind of, when we caramelize, we kind of burn the sugar a little bit, right? And it smells so good. Silver tarnishes. So silver, we know that silver is Ag, right? And so tarnish is silver Ag2S, silver sulfide. There's a lot of coal being burned, right? So there's a lot of, sulfur in our atmosphere in the form of sulfur dioxide. Wood burns, so therefore when wood burns, it forms carbon dioxide, CO2, water vapor, right? So when we say water vapor, we write it down as water and make it gas. And then of course heat, right? Normally, I like to write heat as a triangle, because when I write a reaction, I put heat and I put a triangle underneath. Iron rusts. What's iron? Is Fe, right? What's iron when it rusts? Becomes Fe2O3 or Fe3O4, or different types of iron oxides. That's, you see cars rust, right? What about our body when we rust or oxidize? It's called aging. Right? So oxidation, we'll learn that a little later in the chapters. So you can actually think of living, non-living, still that's the same type of chemical changes going on, right? But just so we are rusting, right? And the key is to prevent that. I'm trying to figure out how I can prevent it so that I'm still cognitive at 100 years old. Have you follow and find out what all those centenarians do? Oh, it's already 9 o'clock. Because I did say yeah, she's throwing hints. But may I go through something just really quick?